Here I am going to discuss about some important terms and some other things about the UP Urban Buildings Regulation of Lettings Rent and Eviction Act 1972. So first of all, the definition of tenant we'll discuss. Tenant is defined under the section 3A of the UP Urban Buildings Regulation of Lettings Rent and Eviction Act 1972. So simply tenant means a person by whom rent is given. Okay, a person by whom a rent is payable is a tenant. Simple thing. Now the official definition is in relation to a building means tenant means a tenant in relation to a building means a person by whom its rent is payable and on the tenant's death his heirs. And in case of a residential building, such only of his heirs as normally resided with him in the building at the time of his death. Second, in case of non-residential building, his heirs. So, tenant means a person who pays rent to the landlord of the building in which he is a tenant, and in this includes his heirs. Heirs means if a residential building is taken into rent, then those heirs who resided with him, and in case of any non-residential building, is normal heirs. Okay, so this is the definition of tenant. Quite simple. Section 3A. Section 3A of the UP Urban Buildings Regulation of Lettings, Rent and Eviction Act 1972. Now comes the definition of building, that is given in section 3I. 3I. The building has been defined under the act to mean residential or non-residential roofed structure. Okay, it may be residential or it may be non-residential also. And what are those buildings which are included? Any land, including any garden, garages, and outhouse appurtenant to such building. Okay, then any furniture supplied by the landlord for use in such building, then any fittings and fixtures affixed to such building for the more beneficial enjoyment thereof. So one important thing is here that a building under this act means only an independent allotable accommodation, whether singly situated or is part of a building complex. Means generally we consider that building means a full building, but in under this act building can a separate room can also be called a building. So under the definition given in section 3I, building will include residential and non-residential both. It should be a roofed structure, and it will include what? Outhouses, garages, gardens, and it will include the furniture supplied with it, and it will include the all fittings and fixtures. Means fitting fixtures means like windows, doors, electrical fittings, plumber related fittings, all these things. So simple definition, but here one case is there that is important. This case determines that where the buildings includes a hut or khokha. So in the case of Ram Dulare versus D.D. Jain 1965, Ram Dulare versus D.D. Jain 1965, Honorable Supreme Court held that hut rented by the tenant is a building. Hut means jhopdi. A hut rented by a tenant is a building. So in the case of Ram Dulare versus D.D. Jain in 1965, a hut is also a building. So that can be mentioned. Now the other important definition comes, it is landlord. Landlord is given in section 3J. Who's landlord? Simply at opposite to tenant. Tenant is a person who pays rent. Landlord is a person who receives rent. That's it. Who receives rent. Landlord in relation to a building means a person to whom its rent is, or if the building were let, would be payable, and includes the agent or attorney of such person. So simply, landlord means a person to whom its rent is payable. That's it. That includes his agents and attorney also. The word landlord does not mean lord of the soil, but the person between whom and the tenant relationship of landlord and the tenant as contemplated by the act exists. So landlord means not the owner of the land. Landlord means the person to whom a tenant gives his rent. That's it. Okay. Now, one important matter in this act is determination of a standard rent. Means who decides the rent and how it is decided, upon what factors it is determined. So this is given in section 9. So question is, what are the powers of district magistrate to determine the standard rent after taking into consideration of the factors in section 9 of the UP Urban Buildings Regulation of Letting Rent and Eviction Act 1972. So here the powers of the district magistrate is also discussed. Why? Because the standard rent that is determined by the district magistrate itself. So what is the standard rent and what are the powers of district magistrate in deciding the standard rents, all covered in this answer. Section 9 of the Act provides for determination of standard rent in respect of the building to which the old Act is applicable and which is let out at the time of the commencement of this Act, and in respect of which there is neither any reasonable annual rent or any agreed rent. So, broadly speaking, if rent is not decided, then district magistrate in such circumstances on application may being made in this behalf determine the standard. Okay, so section 9 says that if the rent is not decided, then district magistrate will, upon the application given by the tenant or all tenants, the district magistrate will determine the standard rent. And then what are the factors which will be taken into consideration by the district magistrate? These are the first of respected market value of the building. Okay, then the cost of construction, maintenance and repairs of that building, then prevailing rents, then amenities provided in the building, and latest assessment if any of the building, and other relevant facts. Simple thing. DM while deciding the standard rent take into the consideration that current respect to market value, cost of construction, maintenance and repairs, prevailing rents, amenities provided, latest assessment if any of the building, and other relevant facts which appear in the circumstances of the case as material. So just to recollect, what are the factors DM will take into consideration? First of all, the respective market value, then cost of the constructions, repair or maintenance, then prevailing rents, means what are the current trends about the rent in that area, then amenities provided, what are the amenities provided by the landlord in the building, then latest assessment, then other relevant facts. Okay, according to subsection 2 of section 9, the district magistrate shall ordinarily consider 10% per annum on the market value of the building. Okay, so one main principle is that DM will declare that the 10% of the market value of the building will be the rent per annum, and if we divide it by 12, then it becomes the monthly rent. So according to subsection 2 of the section 9, district magistrate shall ordinarily considered 10% per annum on the market value of the building, including its site on the said date, to be annual standard rent thereof, and the monthly standard rent shall be equal to 1/12 of the annual standard rent to be calculated. Okay, so as per the section 9, DM will decide on application made by the parties that forbid with the standard rent, and he will take care of the factors like, what are the factors he will take care? First of all, the market value, current market value, then cost of construction, etc. Then prevailing tendencies about the rent. Then what are other things? Amenities provided. What are the amenities has been provided? Then the latest assessment and other relevant facts. These are the factors.